Hello, I'm continuing my reviews on the Friday the 13th series with Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Now this of course is the 9th installment of the Friday the 13th series, and it was originally intended to be the last installment of the series, but of course they ended up making two more. Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason. Actually, three more if you include the remake, but since I don't include the remake as part of the franchise, really there were only two more Friday the 13th movies after this, but Jason Goes to Hell was distributed by New Line Cinema, and Paramount, who originally owned the rights to the franchise, they sold the rights to New Line Cinema after Friday the 13th Part 8 flopped at the box office, and, basically from what I heard, Paramount found the Friday the 13th series to be kind of an embarrassment, so they ended up selling the rights to New Line Cinema, who put out this movie, which came out in 1993. Now, a lot of people hate this movie, but believe it or not, this is actually one of my favorite installments of the franchise. And I guess the reason it's one of my favorites is because this was actually the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw. Basically, this is about... now, my only complaint about this is there's kind of a lack of continuity with Friday the 13th Part 8, because... basically at the end of Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason does die at the end. I'm not going to give away how he dies, but he does die at the end, and he dies in Manhattan because the ending of that movie took place in Manhattan. And in this movie, Jason is back, and he's back at Crystal Lake, and they don't explain how he came back or how he ended up back at Crystal Lake, but apparently there's a comic book series. Like, I saw a review for this movie, and apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently there's a comic book series that's actually set between the events of Friday the 13th Part 8 and this movie. So it would be really interesting to read those comic books, but basically now Jason has come back as a demon. This movie actually gets really overboard with a lot of the supernatural aspects of the Friday the 13th series, which is one of the reasons a lot of people hated this movie, but I actually didn't mind that, because they already kind of did add supernatural stuff with the Friday the 13th series already, so I don't know, they might as well make him a demon in this one. But basically, now the FBI knows about Jason, and I guess that's explained in that comic book series, which is set between the events of Friday the 13th Part 8 and this one. But basically, this FBI Special Unit Task Force tracked Jason down to Crystal Lake, and within the first 10 minutes of the movie, they actually kill him. They blow him up, actually. And what happens is, they don't realize that Jason is now a demon, and so they take his remains and bring it to a morgue. And in the morgue, this coroner doctor is looking at Jason's remains, and he's looking at Jason's heart. And what happens is his heart starts beating again, and you're supposed to assume that Jason's heart is somehow hypnotizing the doctor to do this, but basically the doctor takes the heart and eats it, and then the spirit of Jason takes possession of the coroner doctor's body. And now, in this movie, you find out that Pamela Voorhees actually had another child. It turns out that Jason had a sister, so now Jason, whose spirit is taking possession of this coroner doctor, Jason is now looking for his sister, who in the movie you find out is a woman named Diana. And now, in the movie there's a bounty hunter named Creighton Duke, who somehow knows about this who somehow knows about how Jason is a demon. And in the movie, they never actually explain how Creighton Duke knows how Jason is a demon. Like, you know, now, one of the writers for this movie actually said that there is a backstory to Creighton Duke. Like, it turns out that in the past, Jason killed Creighton Duke's girlfriend, but that still doesn't explain, like, how Creighton Duke knows about all this supernatural stuff involving Jason. But basically, Creighton Duke wants to kill Jason, so he tracks down Diana, who is Jason's sister, and it turns out that now that Jason is a demon, the only way to kill Jason is he needs to be pierced through the heart by a member of the Voorhees family. And so Creighton Duke tracks down Diana, and of course Diana doesn't believe him that Jason is back, and basically later on in the movie Diana ends up getting killed by Jason, and it turns out that Jason, he wants to get back into his old bodies, and in order to become reborn, he needs to go into the body of a member of his family. So what happens is this woman Diana had a daughter named Jessica, and Jessica's ex-boyfriend goes to visit Diana, and then he sees this cop who is actually Jason, but Jason is taking possession of this cop, because in the movie Jason, he keeps passing from body to body, and so, you know, this guy named Steven, who is the ex-boyfriend of Diana's daughter Jessica, he stops this cop who is possessed by the spirit of Jason, and, you know, but before he can stop him, Jason does kill Diana, and then basically Steven is now accused of murdering Diana, and so what happens is Steven eventually finds out from Creighton Duke about what Jason's trying to do, and now that Diana's dead, Jason is now going after Diana's daughter, Jessica, so he can become reborn through Jessica's body. And it turns out that Jessica also had a daughter with Steven, and so now Jason's going after Jessica and her daughter, so now Steven and Creighton Duke have to stop Jason, you know, but they also have to make Jessica believe them that she's related to Jason, because the only way to kill Jason is if he's killed by a member of the Voorhees family. So, yeah, a lot of people hated this movie, but I actually really enjoyed it. You know, I thought it was a really interesting movie. It does something really different with the Friday the 13th franchise, but I actually liked what it did. You know, and I thought it was kind of cool, you know, the whole idea that Jason's spirit is passing from body to body. You know, I thought that was a cool idea. The movie is actually kind of a rip-off of a movie called The Hidden, which I never saw, but that movie came out before this, and I know that movie has a very similar premise to this. The movie also has a very similar premise to the Wes Craven movie Shocker, but I don't know, I liked the movie though. I know a lot of people hated it, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, there's really not much bad I can say about this. You know, despite the lack of continuity with Part 8, I still think it's a good addition to the series, and like I said, it was intended to be the last installment of the series. And one thing I thought was interesting is, at the very end of this movie, I don't want to give away the end, but at the very end, you actually see Freddy Krueger's hand come out of the ground, which kind of foreshadowed Freddy vs. Jason, and the movie Freddy vs. Jason actually kind of picks up where this movie left off. But I'm gonna save Freddy vs. Jason for when I review all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but yeah, in my opinion, it's a good addition to the series. You know, some people might like it, but I know a lot of people hate it, but I personally like it, so yeah, my next review, Friday the 13th review, will be on Jason X.